with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, morimuli wanji, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jed Lee, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so delighted and so very honored that you are joining us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to tell all of your family and friends about the show. Please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Stitcher Radio, wherever you find your podcast. Join us right now from the beautiful state of New York. She is on Long Island. Our guest is here today to celebrate her debut children's picture book. It's called Harper is Going on Vacation. Please welcome to the show, Lauren Leary. Hey, Lauren, how are you?
Good. Thank you so much for having me.
Delighted to have you on. Really excited to speak about Harper is Going on Vacation, especially now as finally here in the East Coast. It feels like summer is here. Tell me all about this book, please.
Well, this is the first book of my anticipated series of 12 books. And it's so special to me because it just benefits multiple audiences. Children have been really engaged in learning, and parents are supplied with questions to ask. And teachers can use this as a supported source to their curriculum alignment. So it's just really special to me because it benefits so many people.
One of the things we should say right out at the beginning of the interview is that in addition to being a debut children's author, you are a kindergarten teacher, and you've been doing that for a while, correct?
Correct. Long time. So I can see firsthand what children really like to listen to and read along with. So I made sure with my first book, Harper's Going on Vacation, that it was relatable and fun. It's not about this little girl taking a luxurious vacation. It's visiting her grandma. And so even if a child has never been on an airplane before, I hope that they can relate to one or two activities in the book, such as going to the zoo or making spaghetti and meatballs with her grandma, or going to the candy store, or staying in the pool too long. So I made sure that every book is very relatable for kids.
So I'm guessing by the clues there that in the first vacation that Harper is visiting her grandmother.
Yes, she is.
Yeah.
She's visiting her grandma in Florida. And she does take an airplane there. And right away on the airplane, she loves to look out the windows and look at the clouds and come up with some cloud stories based on their shapes. So it's off to a great start. And then, another great detail, she just, small but exciting. She gets her own bedroom because opposed to at home, she has to share a room with her brother, Oakley. And then, she gets to have the most delicious special breakfast with her grandma, fluffy waffles with chocolate chips for a happy face. And then they're off to the zoo to see some of her favorite animals. And then she's off to the beach. She gets to make spaghetti and meatballs, go to the candy shop, swim in the pool way too late, and she ends up looking like a wrinkly raisin. And then she's back home. And every book ends with, like I said, 5 questions for a parent or a family member to ask the child. And, again, I'm just so happy to be on your podcast because I know your mission is to bring families closer together through reading. And I thought, what a better way than 5 questions at the end to help ask effective comprehension questions, but also to just hopefully create an organic conversation between the adult and child.
Yeah. One of the things that I found as I remember back to when my kids were toddlers and were sitting on my lap and reading together, and then as they got older and we continued to read with them, the reading part was sort of only maybe half of the time that we spent together. Sometimes the majority of the time that we called reading time was spent talking about the books and asking and answering questions, both going back and forth.
Right. Right. I completely agree. Because even the last question I'm always asking the child, for example, in this book, the last question is, where do you want to go on vacation? So it just opens up such a great conversation, whether or not they want to share something that they've done or gone to already, or in the future, what they would like to do. And then there's more specific questions pertaining to the book.
Why is it so important for us to read, to talk with our kids and ask them those questions as we're reading?
It checks in with their comprehension. I think that decoding is part of it, but making sure that they remember what they're reading. I think that's the goal of reading, is understanding what these children are reading to us. So it's really important. It's nice that they sound fluent reading to us, and that's half the challenge, but it's also making sure they're grasping what is reading. So my books are not like a textbook, but they are discrete learning. Checking in, asking these questions are just monumental to make sure that they're where they should be in their reading level.
Yeah. One of the things that I don't think parents are really aware of, and to be honest with you, I wasn't really aware of it until I started doing this show, and there's a thought out there that from kindergarten to grade 3, kids are learning to read. And then at grade 3, there's a switch that's thrown, and kids now are reading to learn. So it's really vital that I think it's important for us to read with our kids throughout their lives. And when they're in middle school and high school, if we're not reading aloud with them, sitting down and co-reading and having conversations with them about what they're consuming, whether it's books or movies or music or something on the internet. But certainly it's essential that we help our kids become proficient, so that when that switches, when that change is made at 3rd grade, and now they're expected to read to learn, that they have the skills, both not only being able to decode, as you said, but also being able to comprehend what it is they're reading, so they don't get left behind.
I completely agree with you. I actually taught 5th grade for almost 10 years and made a big switch to kindergarten, so I can see ultimately what they need to, where they need to be later on in their elementary years. But with my book, like you said, the fundamental, like just having fun with reading and enjoying it, whether you're in preschool or kindergarten with your parent, with my book, that's what I want. I want them to want to read at an early age and find it fun. And that's why I said there's multiple benefits of, different audiences with my book without even realizing it. Like a parent may not realize, who's not an educator, how powerful these specific questions are. And that's what I want. I don't want it to feel like they're in school in class. It's discrete learning, and there's just so many benefits for everybody.
Yeah. One of the benefits that last very important question, I think, gives to kids, and you can tell me whether or not you agree, asking a kid where they would love to go on vacation, asking a kid their opinion, I think is so empowering, because we forget that we are our kids' first and most important teachers. And when we demonstrate to them that we care about what they think, we care about how they feel, I think that's really empowering.
I completely agree. You just took the word empowering. Making them feel empowered is critical here, especially in reading and just listening to their opinions, and maybe even options. They're telling us their feelings and wants, I think is just so important. I completely agree with you. And that conversation can organically happen just by asking that one question in my book. And I think it's also just, I keep saying, people have been asking me, well, what grade level is this appropriate for? And I have been saying really preschool to about 4th grade. Preschool obviously can't decode it, but I've witnessed little kids just looking at the pages and saying, Paschetti for the spaghetti and meatballs page, and having fun with it and kind of just talking on their own, creating their own narrative. And I love that up to, 1st, 2nd grade, where this is the reading level, the target, just making sure they can decode it and understand it. And then I have nieces and nephews in 3rd and 4th grade who could benefit from just honing in on a certain line regarding figurative language that might support them or help the teacher or the child in the classroom to better understand what that means. So it's really for a variety of ages for different reasons, but all positive ones.
I'm happy that you mentioned that. There's so much going on, and Harper is going on vacation that I love. I love the fact that it is celebrating intergenerational relationships. I don't think that that's something that we do celebrate enough of, because of the way society has changed and we're spread out. That growing up, I was able to walk 3 doors down to visit my grandparents when I was growing up, and that doesn't happen a lot. I had a great friendship with my grandmother. And I think that those relationships are so important. But the other thing, the thing that you just mentioned, that Harper is going on vacation, is appropriate for kids from pre-K through grade 5. I think it's really important for us to make sure we go out of our ways to sit down with our kids and read with them when they're in 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, to make sure that they are reading, because it is such an important skill that they literally have to have if they're going to continue their education. And, there's so much going on in schools. A teacher might miss it, or a teacher might notice that your child needs help with reading, but there's not the resources to give them the help that they need, and they're not going to be left behind, because that doesn't happen in most places these days. So we can't allow our kids to just continue to fall behind as they progress through school.
It's been really special because many of my students now that I had in kindergarten are in 4th and 5th grade, and they come back as a mystery reader. And several of them have been able to read my book. So just seeing it full circle, and the word you said, making them feel empowered, they felt on top of the world that they got to read to my class and model what good reading looks like, sounds like. So they, the 4th and 5th graders benefited, and my class thought they were a celebrity. So the whole thing was so special, just kind of making them all come together. It was really special to witness.
I love that reading buddy, that celebrity mystery reader thing that you're doing. And that was something that happened when I was a kid. My kids went to a Catholic school where having a reading buddy with their 7th and 8th graders when they were in kindergarten was such an important part of my kids' journey through school. They made friends with those kids. Today, they're still friends with these young people. I don't see it happening as much as I did before. Can you just talk a little bit more about the benefits? Obviously, the kids in kindergarten are benefiting from seeing one of their peers, somebody that's not that much older than them, reading on a really proficient level. But can you talk a little bit about the benefits that those 5th and 6th graders get when they come back and they're that celebrity, and now suddenly they're reading and kids are looking up to them?
I think that they benefit greatly, my 4th and 5th grade. Well, everybody, like you said, but particularly the 4th and 5th graders come back, and not only are they modeling reading, but they're also modeling behavior, how to read, how to listen, checking in, asking them questions. The kids are raising their hands. They're like a mini teacher. They take the lead. I sit back and watch and just let it happen. But I think it's a great reminder for the older students how important and how excited that the kids get listening to them, and that they would want to do it more. And one of my students, my old students who, the 4th grader who left, said, "Can I please come back and read again?" And he didn't always love reading. And I said, "If you keep checking in with me with what you're reading," and said, I promise, I'm going to read more. It kind of, gave him that fire again, how reading can be fun. And he's kind of finally found the genre he enjoys. And he came back and got to read like a few pages from his book. And I just think it's so special. So he benefited greatly from sharing with my students, and my students were probably more engaged with him than listening to me read. They were just so excited, and they look up to these kids. And then they actually end up being my bus helpers and get to walk out with the kids and say goodbye to them and put them on the bus. And they ultimately become a role model for great reading and just as an overall student in the school. It's a really special thing I've been doing. Mystery Reader is once a week on Wednesdays, and I give clues to who the person is, and the students guess, and they keep asking for the same guests, though, the older kids, to come back because they just form such a great relationship.
Yeah. And I love that you're helping kids in those older grades earn responsibility. And I think that's the, if you're talking about classroom management, behavior management in a school, I think that's a key. It's you help a kid feel that they're special and that they're important, and help them understand that there are younger kids looking up to them. I've always seen those are the kids that rise to the occasion. Yes.
And it's not, I've had to say they've been turned down before. I'm very close. My school is kindergarten to 5th grade, and some 4th and 5th grade teachers have had to call me that week and say, so-and-so is not able to be a mystery reader. I hope they turn it around.
Yeah.
And then they're able to come the following week, and they check in with me, and, not for nothing, it kind of makes me feel good that it seems like the end of the world that they can't come and read for 10 minutes and talk with my class. It just shows that it works.
Yeah.
So I'm proud of everybody when that happens. So they're able to turn around and come, but like you said, they end up really being very successful in school. So it's just a nice piece of the puzzle.
Yeah. Hey, one of the things that I want to touch on before we go any further is I love the fact that Harper is going on vacation. She's going to a place, but the real vacation is the relationship.
Yes.
So it's like, going to a place is really, really fun, but going to build this relationship and to spend time with somebody special, that's the real treat. That's better than any theme park or national park that we could imagine.
I 100% agree. And, not everyone's family looks the same. And maybe some of my students or kids do have a grandma, but maybe it's a grandpa. Maybe it's an aunt. Maybe it's their stepdad, their mom, whoever it is. And there are nuances within my book. And I am blessed that both grandmas are around in our family. And one we refer to as Noni, and the other one is Mimi. So I combined those, and that's how I came up with Nomi in the book.
Ah.
Yeah, so Nomi is the combination of the special grandmas in our family.
That's neat.
And like you said, it doesn't truly hone in on the fact that she got to fly to Florida. It's the experiences that they get to have together that make the book really special. And when I've gotten to be a mystery reader in other classes, in addition to reading it to my own students, they're yelling out constantly, like, I love spaghetti and meatballs, or I love going to the zoo. The amount of connections were just so great. And then we'd have to stop, and then they would talk and share their own experiences. So the conversations could go on endlessly.
Yeah.
It was really sweet.
Well, I love spaghetti and meatballs too.
Who doesn't?
and it was my grandmother who taught me how to make them, and that time spent together was, here it is almost 100 years later, and I still remember it. I still cherish it.
Exactly.
One of the things, Lauren, I wanted to just, it's going to be a hard question for you to answer, but we talk here about the podcast on the podcast, why it's so important to read with your young kids, and point out studies that show that kids who are read to when they're 3, 4, 5 years old, kids who are read to every day, 20 minutes a day, by the time they get to 1st grade, they will have heard over 800,000 to 1 million more words to their peers who weren't read to. And that's a tremendous advantage. And I want to really celebrate that. But I also, as I'm talking about that, and I'm hearing it, even my own words, saying your kids are going to hear over 1 million more words than their peers who weren't read to. I'm immediately thinking about those kids who aren't read to, and I'm thinking about the tremendous disadvantage that they're put in. And I don't know how to solve it other than coming on the podcast and saying, stop reading with your kids, because we want everybody to be the same.
Right.
That's not the answer. What do you think we can do to help those kids whose parents, for whatever reason, maybe the parents aren't able to read themselves. Maybe they're not able to read in English. Maybe they're working 4 jobs and taking public transportation. So by the time they get home, they're exhausted. How can we support those kids and those families so that everybody has a better shot at really thriving in school?
Well, I completely agree with everything that you're saying. And I think that with my first book, at least I can help a little bit with that. I mean, we all know you get good at what you practice. Mm-hmm. So with my book, when I say the range could be preschool to 5th grade, I have many where I teach many Spanish-speaking families or people who work possibly 2 or 3 jobs, like you said, and they are exhausted when they come home. So thankfully, my book could ultimately take about 5 minutes to read, because I know bedtime is sometimes challenging, and supplying 5 specific questions. So parents don't even need to think exactly what they should ask in addition to what was your favorite part of the book. But I also have many siblings that are older that can read this book with them. That it's a much easier reading level opposed to, so if they're going home with their kindergarten or 1st grader and I have a 4th or 5th grade sibling or older, they can simply read this book with them and form a connection with their sibling or whoever is home helping take care of them. So it kind of takes the thinking out of what do I ask this child in the next 5 minutes, and just taking those 5 minutes to read this book is monumental. Yeah. Like you said, just forming that relationship and love of learning and love of reading. Wonderful. So I think with my first book, it could somewhat help close that gap with reading. And I think that, like I said, it just could be really special for possibly a sibling or whoever is home to read this book with them.
Perfect. Well, Harper is going to Florida to visit her grandmother in the first book. Do you know where Harper is going in the other 11 books that you envision?
So I have decided that with the remaining 11 books, I am going to have a different character of focus in each story. So the next one is after my son. It's called Oakley is Going to the Beach. So again, very relatable, whether it's, going in the ocean and going under or over the waves, making sandcastles. My kids love finding seashells, bringing them home and painting them for neighbors, getting the ice cream man there. So again, very relatable. So Oakley is the next book. And, after that, it's going to be after my niece Anna's sleepover. So the remaining 11 books, again, the titles are very relatable for children.
Wonderful. Hey, Lauren, we should let everybody know where they can go to find out more about Harper is Going on Vacation and find out more about you.
So Harper is Going on Vacation is available on Amazon, and people can follow me on my Instagram at Once Upon a Leary. I'm also on Facebook with the same name at Once Upon a Leary. And my daughter just encouraged me, who's 8 years old, to get on TikTok, again, at Once Upon a Leary. So I'm trying my best to get my book out there.
Wonderful. We've had a really fun time, an eye-opening time, speaking to the author of Harper is Going on Vacation. It's the debut children's book from our guest, Lauren Leary. Hey, Lauren, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast and will join us for the next exciting episode. If you want to make sure you don't miss a second of the show, please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, wherever you get your podcasts. And also be sure to visit readingwithyourkids.com and download your copy of the Reading with Your Kids online magazine. It's free. It's available at readingwithyourkids.com. Just click on our blog. Before we go, I want to make sure that I give a big thank you to my team: Fatima Khan, Rory Grady, Madison Dairies, Soji Franklin, Monica Rivera Sosa, and O'Leary. I want to give a big thank you to my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me, and most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, and as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.